He's a great man. I believe in him. Even though it's not too long that I met him, but I believe in him so much. He's a wonderful man. He's a chartered accountant, a politician too. He ran at the last election, that's 2019. And when I look into his wealth of experience, I said, no, it's a man to come and speak. And I believe most of us we've not had that experience. So he will be taking us in that talk today, guideline to political um, experience. So I would like to invite to the podium Mr. Kayode Awokoya. God bless you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Podium is also the brand name of some of our companies, so I'm happy to be here. Thank you for putting this together. I believe it's an opportunity for us to share experiences on how we can make our nation very, very great to what God has purposed it to be. I like the theme that says, get involved. So the question is, get involved in what? My prayer and my outlook is that by the time we have shared our conversations, you'll be encouraged to see where you should get involved, where I should get involved. Now, we all belong to several layers of governance. We are from families, and I believe the order and structure of a family doesn't have much of a democracy, depending on how you think your family evolved. So the man, the woman, the children, the leader has been chosen by God. The children don't vote to come by a particular set of parents. Parents also don't vote to say, God, give me this number of children only, or this type of child. Those are things in the divine hand of God. And we can see that why we get involved all together is that there's a divine hand always working. So if we get involved according to that divine hand and divine plan, we will get the very, very best. So I believe all of us were involved in a community, a family, a community, maybe a local government, a state, and a nation, and we're all over the world. And we can see that inside this ecosystem, there are several organs of both state or business. But because we just want to hit the exact points here, we can see clearly that the levels of political governance are the most important that affect our lives, if the truth is to be told. I think the host was trying to introduce me. Personally, I've been a private sector person. I'm an accountant, a chartered stockbroker, a banker for more than 2 decades, perhaps 3 decades. And ordinarily, I will say what concerns me and politics. But I've seen all through that time that eventually, everything you do or you plan to do is affected by one government policy or lack of it. So by just way of reminder, it's government that acknowledges that you were born. Though when you are born, your parents are happy, but until government acknowledges that you are born, you are not yet born. Abi? Or even when you pass away, and really we commiserate with those who have lost their loved ones in recent tragedies, both local and international. But we have seen people pass away, and until government acknowledges that what you are dead, you are not yet dead. Nobody recognizes that you are dead until government acknowledges. So I'm just taking the beginning and the end. So you can fit in anything that happens in between. When you go to any educational institution, eventually, whatever document you are given, if government didn't back that institution that gave to you, that document is a piece of paper. So, and you see that they can almost rewrite it whether you were born or whether you are dead. You can say that anything that government has a hand in it, though it exists today, if you are not careful, somebody will say it doesn't exist tomorrow. So it's important that we are interested in who is in charge at the political level. Very, very important. Now, we've had enough experiences to see how important that is. Okay, we've had enough experience to see how important those in political authority are to our life. So they are the ones that are charged under the law to make laws and to implement laws that affect us. Nobody is a law unto himself. So you cannot secure yourself alone, for example. So to secure you, there is a security agency created by government, controlled by government. And if the person who controls it wakes up and says that body that was meant to secure you should actually be harassing you and persecuting you, I think the youth can understand NSAS. What happens? So the person that should protect you becomes the person you want to protect yourself from. And it becomes what, like Fela said, double wahala for dead body, because you already cannot secure yourself. Then the person who is paid, who you pay to secure you, suddenly you find out he or she actually is the one that is your insecurity. So we must be interested about who is in charge of the political level at every, political governance at every level. Now, I did say that ordinarily I shouldn't find myself in the political space, but we found ourselves there, and this should be helpful for the youths who have just gone through NSAS. So somewhere back 2016, just towards the end of the year like this, we just said, look, this nation is not going so well. And people said, look, we researched and found that the only legal and sustainable means of people being in authority is by people who have voted into political office. Where people get there by the gun, or they get there by their monarchy, you find out that after some time, something gives. It is the only way that you put people and you remove people in political authority. For you to vote people into office, what must happen is that you must be registered to vote. So everybody made sure that they were first of all registered to vote for us to continue in that little movement. Then the next thing we found out that by the law of the land, only candidates from political parties that are registered by government can present themselves to be your leader. So the question was, do we join a political party or you form one? We said, look, if we join an existing one, there may be problem. So we founded one then. And the name of the party was Abundant Nigeria Renewal Party. 1 year after, we got registered by INEC, after following the due diligence, which I don't want to bore us with. And that was like December, I got fielded as the candidate for the party in the 2019 general election. And I found a lot during that process, in that when you want to go into office, there are certain things that we all don't know that we all need to know. So the first thing I realized is that it's like you are going to a war and a strategy. So your question is, you want to win, and we plan to win. So you needed to know, what are the total number of customers that could vote for me? So the number of eligible voters in Etiosa was about 358,000. Now, if I digress a bit, the fact is that every year in January, and I think maybe after an update, INEC is mandated by law to give the register of voters to all the political parties. So if you don't get involved to be a member of a political party, you will never have access to such information. I can tell you that for 2019 general election, I have the disc that has the name and the picture of every registered voter in Nigeria. It's such a big thing. By law, they are meant to give. So the parties are aware of who is a registered voter and who is not a registered voter. So that is the first level I want you to get involved. If you are listening to me anywhere, you must be a member of a political party of your choice. And when I mean a member, not an attendee when they hold a rally. Go any party that catches your fancy, make sure you have their membership card and you are paying some money and you are fulfilling every other 1,000 votes. And we researched how has been the winning trend. I will just go straight to how the results of the election came. The winner of that election had 22,500 votes. That means that the person won with 6% of the eligible votes. And he's your House of Rep in Abuja. And I'm sure that you have not heard of him since then in 2019. We are not politicking here, but that's the absolute truth. If I ask you what's the name of the House of Rep for Etiosa Federal Constituency, can anybody tell me? Particularly those who are not politicians. Can anybody tell me? You don't know, but it's collecting some hundreds of millions maybe every month, you know, getting involved, but that is it. But if you put somebody there that was really working for you, then you will not only know his or her name, then on all the polling units and how many voters were in each polling unit. I'm giving a little background and I want to get to the real icing on the cake. Now, you might just think any area is populated and that's where voters are. I can tell you for free that the largest polling unit in 2019 election was the one at Lekki, Ikate, around the model school near Lagoon College. It had over 6,000 voters. And from what I saw on the data across the country, perhaps is the polling unit then with the largest number of voters. So you could think that the largest number of voters would be in Ajegunle. Yes, 6,000 plus. Yes, 6,000 voters in that polling unit. So you need to know where the voters are so that what you can prospect them and maybe get them to vote for you. Now, when we were prospecting, many didn't take us serious. They say, oh, they have come again, or what do you bring? That kind of a thing, you know, and we were derided. A lot of, particularly by the youths, said, go and join the major parties, go and join the major parties. And we said, the major parties won't do anything for you from what we have seen. So, but we see that the opportunity was there to be put into office. Now, where am I going precisely? The winner had 22,000 votes, just 6% of the votes. There were many, the total people who came out to vote were 51,579, which was just about 14% of the eligible voters. Where are the remaining 86? So I am challenging everybody listening to me that for your local elections, House of Assembly, House of Rep, maybe even up to Senate, if you can mobilize yourselves into tens of thousands, 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, I assure you that that block will produce the next person. I assure you. Let me excite you a bit to know that the current speaker, Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila, who is of the Surulere 1 federal constituency, you know how many votes that he won to win his election? 14,617. That might be a larger percentage in his constituency. I don't know how many eligible voters, but I'm talking in absolute terms. He did not even win as many votes as the candidate in Etiosa. And today he's the speaker. So I'm giving you the reason why you should get involved, because even within the existing constitution and setup that you think that is imperfect, there's a pathway to electing leaders of your own choice. Now, this should whet your appetite a bit. That you mean if I join a party and I talk to my fellow friends, we are about 500 in our group, we can talk to another group. If we continue that from now to 2023, it is very possible that, well, we've lost the local government election. But the House of Assembly in our constituency here, on whatever constituency you are that you are listening to me, the House of Rep, and maybe up to Senate, we can choose our own local leaders. And I bet you that in the scheme of things, the local government chairman, the councillor, your House of Assembly member, your House of Rep and senator are far more important to you than the president. Maybe your governor, but all these other ones I mentioned, when they come together and they are decent people, the governor will have to do what they want. Because they are already controlling votes that if the governor doesn't listen to them, they will remove him. In fact, they won't wait for his tenure to continue. They say, look, if you don't do this, they will remove him. Because each person is controlling some 20,000 to 25,000 voters. And so the first challenge is get involved to be a member of a political party, please. The second is make sure you get involved to be a registered voter to vote at the general election. Fortunately, for good or bad, the entry level, and also it is don't just think that who am I going to vote for? Think that can't people vote for me? After all you need is 5,000, 15,000, 20,000 people to believe in you. Can't you find them to vote for you? Or you join hands to vote for somebody that you like? So getting involved means that you must have the power to vote for somebody and present yourself as somebody who can be voted for. Fortunately, the entry level is WAEC, attempted WAEC, from councillor to the president. Attempted, I'm qualifying it properly. You don't have, all you needed to have shown is that you attempted it. Your results could be 0 all through. Once they write you a result that you attempted WAEC, that is the minimum, that is the bad interpretation of the courts. For councillorship, House of Assembly, House of Rep, you don't need to be more than 30 years. But maybe for governor and senator, for that local government chairman, for councillor, you only need to be 25 years. So at 30 years, for House of Assembly, House of Rep, you can be a member of the House of Rep or House of Assembly if you are at least 30 years. And many youth I see are at least or more than 30 years. If you want to be a senator or governor, 35 years. And if you want to be president, you'll be 40 years. Now, don't think that any office is too difficult to get, even that office of president. You just need to do the voting math, make alliances, and make your try. Who knows that the first election might not go into a complete winner. Let me also tell you that the results of the Etiosa House of Rep was so keenly contested that there was no winner at the first ballot. I don't think there was any other House of Rep in the country in 2019 election that went to a runoff between the first and the second, because the difference, the second person was the PDP candidate who had 18,000 votes. But in between all this, there were all manner of anomalies. But I'm just giving you the end result. Now, just to also round up very quickly, because I believe a panel will come, let's learn a few things that are happening in Anambra right now. People have gotten involved by offering themselves as candidates and by going out to vote in spite of threats of violence. What has also happened is that it has put pressure on INEC to depend more than before on technology. Unlike in the general election, they were supposed to use technology so that they would not steal our votes. Where I could be dead sure that the votes counted for me in person was accurate was my polling units, where I voted. And I have the results personally because I was my own self-agent there. And I can say with all sense of humility that I won my polling unit for House of Rep election. I won the unit. About 60 votes from that polling unit. I won it. The second person was APC. So I can say that, well, in my own immediate locality, whoever is there, you're not much more. And if I didn't win any other thing, I wanted to convince myself that even in wherever I came out from, that I was popular enough and much more popular than the establishment. So when they were counting results, they were saying, who is this one, who is this one? But who were my people who voted for me? Those who, I would say, maybe more of elite. Those who are not, like you could say, the grassroots, young people. I just canvassed them, and I now notice that there are quite a number of such voters in all the polling units all over the LGA. But we didn't have enough resources to have credible agents in all the polling units and at the collation center. So in many instances, even where we had people, we found out that they were just swapping our votes for some of the establishment because we didn't have credible people. Now, when the elections are general elections, unlike off-cycle elections like Anambra, the security forces are spread thin all over the country. So the capacity to make sure that people don't cheat is reduced. So get involved to be a member of a party, be registered to make sure that you're able to vote at the election. When you have met these two conditions, at the election time, there are other ways that I want all of us to get involved. One, offer yourself as a credible party agent for a credible candidate. It may not even be the person in your party. Of course, there was no way they could bribe me in my polling units. There was no way they could turn my votes, and in one or two others. But the first rule at the polling units are, even when they are counting, when their agents are not complete, the major parties always have agents. So they will agree that, you see those scores of those other lesser parties, okay, you take this one, I will take this one. Everybody is looking at them, then they will sign the sheet. Okay, and that's really what happens. So offer yourself as a credible party agent at polling units Then at Collation Center, I am hopeful and I believe that by 2023, there will be more electronic collation. But we saw how within just a state, technology failed INEC. So by the time they are doing it across the country, you can be sure that the technology won't work so full. So there will still be room for some maneuvering at the Collation Center. At the Collation Center, there were some things we found out. So you are counting votes today, and by the time you are leaving, maybe APC has 5,000, PDP has 3,800, YP, whatever, then you come in the morning, which was to complete it, then you now find out that it was actually APC now having 3,000. The numbers are changing for the party. It's not what you counted before you left, because the collation normally will start so late, 10:30 p.m., 11 p.m. My colleague is here. And they will just also start in the morning, not letting you know precisely when they will start. Sometimes your party agents want to gain access to the collation center, and the security agents also don't allow them. So I'm on a public forum, but I can say clearly that the stakes are very high in Anambra, but when it's nationwide like that, I can say clearly that security agents in all instances are not neutral. In some places they are neutral, in some instances, and in many they are not neutral. So you must get involved to be like what? Your own local vigilante. So the law says that when you finish elections at every polling unit, I encourage everyone to wait at a corner. Once you are not tampering with the voting process, you are still within the law. Wait till they count the last vote and announce the votes in that polling unit. They will paste it, but you will notice that between the time they paste it and another 30 minutes, 1 hour, it's probably turned off. So wait enough to when they are pasting it and take pictures or record of that polling unit. That may be the kind of vigilante you are able to offer to ensure that the votes that were cast there at the very source, they don't change at the collation center or at any other center. So I believe that going forward, if you are involved, as I've stimulated you and I've encouraged you, your vote will count much more than it had counted before. It is true your vote may not have counted fully, but your vote's counted. It is easier for manipulation when you don't come out to vote in general election. It's also easier for manipulation when you are not a member of a political party. A few people will colonize it and bring out the candidates that you don't like. No wonder when they hold, some of the major parties, when they hold their primaries, you find that they are having figures of votes more than the general election. So you ask yourself, if the party candidate had 1 million votes within the party, how come that that candidate of that party at the general election could not have more than 70% of that 1 million votes? It means that even it's either all the party candidates, members didn't vote for that candidate, or they brought out fictitious numbers. Well, the panel discussion will still come a lot more, and my job is not to give you a long speech, but to stimulate you, to let you know that if you get involved for the long run, you can determine who is your leader at every level, at the local government level, at the state level, and at the federal level. And when the person you put there is in office, chances are that you will get the kind of governance that you actually want. Lastly, you can think of it. Many of us here are educated. We went to one school or the other. And so we have old students at school. We elect them, and they work largely for us. Many of us live in communities. You have residents association. We elect them, and they work for us. It's the same thing. They do things in our common interest. We give them some kind of power, and we give them access to the money that is our commonwealth. It's the same thing. If it's working for you at that local level, it can work for you at the larger level. Thank you very much for listening to me. I believe that I've been able to stimulate you a bit on the need to get involved and remain involved till you get the results that you want. Thank you very much, and God bless you. I believe I can take my seat. Thank you.
Well, I don't know if anybody has question. You should have one question or the other.
And if there are any questions coming online.
Okay, is there any
ask me.
question coming online? Okay, because this is a practical section. He's been there, he went through it, so whatever he's saying what he has experienced. Any question? So no question here?
So thank you.
Okay.
I'll take my seat. You have a question? Okay.
Actually, I have so many questions running, so I'm thinking, okay, so which one should I ask him?
The Lord will lead you.
You know, I want to ask this because I came in the middle of your speech, so I'm assuming that you are with a party that was not one of the established parties, you know. But is there a way we can have a coalition with other people, even if we are of different parties, but towards election, have a coalition where we can work for one another, like, because the figures you are talking about are figures we can generate. I mean, I'm thinking in my mind now that if 3, 4, 5 churches in a particular zone decide that this person should be, we can make that happen. In this Lekki alone, the churches here can decide, okay, you are from this church, okay, you are, okay, let's make you, and then we all go and vote for you. If the 6,000 will, yeah. I mean, that's what I'm thinking of. So what do you think can be done to have a coalition, something like that? You know, that's the question I will ask for now.
I don't know if there are any other questions so that I can roll them together to be easy. All right, thank you very much. A coalition is very possible. So if you get involved, it then means that you are willing to interrogate all those who emerge as candidates of the parties that the government has allowed to run. So I did say that where best to get involved actually is inside a party. Today there are 18 maybe INEC registered, I don't want to say legally, because that legal figure can change based on the cases in courts. But as of today, if you go to INEC website, there are 18 INEC registered parties. Now, you get interest as the political space is going on and see who emerges as candidates. But right now, you have a golden opportunity. Many are doing their national congresses. Many will still do their national congresses. So you can actually get involved, though it's not your party, in looking at who are the candidates that are running for chairman, secretary, and other important positions, and see who you can work with and find a way to resource and make sure that they come into office. It's a little bit of a digression to answering your question, but maybe it just came to my mind. You know the importance of political parties. INEC recognizes only like the national ESCO of parties. So even if you win primaries in your party, your nomination form that goes to INEC must be signed by your party chairman and secretary and some other officers. And that's why even APC got into problem in places like Zamfara and Co. So if the legally recognized officers of your party don't sign your form, your nomination is void. If another person signs your form, your nomination is void. So we have an opportunity as the maybe not so major or government-sponsored parties have their congresses thereafter. Let's take interest. We will see this name. This one wants to be chairman. This one wants to be secretary. Do I know him or her? Let's reach out to them and see what plan they have. It's not just to support anybody we like. Let's reach out to them, and if we see that this person is still a bit reasonable, let's support them to be in the gates of those parties. Actually, it might be helpful to us. Now, when the candidates have emerged, you get to know the candidates who have emerged like 90 days to an election. And that's when they get published at the local government level, that if you have any objection. So just to inform us that when that timetable comes, we should make effort to go to the local government headquarters that is nearest to us. You will see the forms and the names of all the party candidates who have won nomination from their party. In fact, during that time, you see everybody's own. So you will see every detail about Buhari. You see it on his form, pasted. In the last election, it was required by law. Every detail and information you didn't even know about Oshibajo, it was there. About someone, it was there. It's public information. The schools they went to, when they entered, when they left, where their working career, it is information you supply to INEC, and INEC is obliged to put it there in the public. So, sir, when it gets to that time, please make sure that you encourage not just a church thing, but everybody you know. Go to the local government and see the names of the candidates. Those that catch your fancy, they will have public means of reaching them, engage with them, and once you make up your mind that you find A, B, C person as a credible person, you will not find out that they have certain campaign structures. Reach out to those structures, reach out to people, and engage with them. It's important you engage with them so that you don't engage with somebody that will actually make you worse off than the status quo. But that coalition is possible. Actually, that coalition is necessary. And the areas where they will need your support mainly, apart from trying to get votes, is to represent them as party agents on the time of election. They normally, to pay an agent as a 2019, averagely, Toby, to cost like 5,000 naira per person. The person who wants to stand in. Maybe with inflation, by 2023, it will actually be more. But for a well-to-do person, with 5,000, please, I don't want this. They will stand there. You'll be the eyes. Make sure that nothing goes wrong. So that coalition is possible. That coalition is necessary so that at your own local level, you can walk around and make sure that you put those you want into office. Don't believe any lie and feel, no. They were afraid. For us to go to a runoff, they had to cancel some votes in some polling units. They were afraid because at first try, the establishment party could not win. They couldn't win. So it's very possible, sir, and it's necessary. But we should try and do it from inside the political party, from when they publicize the names, when during the election timetable at the local government, engage with them and offer them services. Ordinarily, they will have spent a fortune to buy, but it will be a quality service. And I'm sure if we do it for some office in 2023, if you don't get there, it will remain very, very small within the ambit of the law now. Okay, there's an online question. All right. What, in your opinion, is the reason for voter apathy? I believe that people are rational. So if they feel that the end result of a process, their involvement in a process will not reasonably affect the result of the process, they will hedge their bet and say, well, let me just leave it. Whoever comes, and that is why the ethnicity, tribe, which school did he go to, which church or mosque does he go to, so that we'll find out how we can link up with him or her and engage, but that is the error that we make. The other thing that we are trying to, that there is another theory is possible, is that those voter numbers, how real are they? Because we have just looking at the statistics from 1999, we have not even had any time, maybe national elections, we had more than 50% voter turnout. In Ethiopia, we had 14%. Anambra, maybe up until now, they were having 20-something%. So it's either that big figure is not correct, or there's really that apathy. I think that the truth is found in the two. There are many people who have died that are still on that roll, because government says you are dead. But you need that government paper when they want to tax you, even to put your dead on the ground. But they don't use that data of people who pass away to, okay, let's go to all bank accounts, make sure that the accounts are blocked. Let's go to all registry, driver's license to cancel it. Let's go to all passports to cancel it. Government doesn't do that, but that is what government is supposed to do. So off my own head, I think that the number of eligible voters are probably less than what is. Then of course, people over the years have seen that there are many loopholes and lacunas, and they see that people invest in those loopholes and lacunas to get into office, and they say, well, let's just hedge our bet and let's see whoever emerges, and let's see how we can engage him or her. But they found out that the more they did that, the more what, as fella will say, overtake, don't overtake. Because they have been overtaken, and when you're being overtaken, we don't know what it means, is that you're actually going back. When things are overtaking you so fast, everything is overtaking you so fast, you are actually going back, worse off than where you were. So that's my response to your question and to the question that has come on. Maybe I would like to yield now for the panelists to come so that we can have even a more fresher perspective on how we can get involved. Thank you very much.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much, Mr. Awukoya, for that. I'll take my seat and then I'll invite the panelists to join me at the table as I introduce them. So, okay. The first panelist I'd like to invite is Mr. Oluwatobi Adejoro Olua. Toby is an entrepreneur, owner and founder of Newcastle Limited, a real estate development firm in Lagos, Nigeria. He graduated from the University of Lagos with a bachelor's degree in architecture and master's degree in environmental design. He consulted for the Lagos State Government with the Ministry of Environment, Department of Conservation and Ecology, and has worked on various notable construction projects in Lagos, Nigeria. He's an alumnus of the Enterprise Development Center, Pan-African University, Lagos, with a certificate in entrepreneurial management. He's also the founder and chief executive officer of New ACES Limited, JAT Design Limited, and Nest Spaces Limited. Toby was also a candidate in the 2019 general election. He ran to be the representative at the House of Assembly for Etiosa Local Government Constituency 1 under the umbrella of the Social Democratic Party, SDP. He's also the secretary of the To Better Nigeria Foundation, a foundation that seeks to improve the civic and political participation of the citizens in Nigeria. Please make welcome Mr. Toby Adejoro Olua. Okay. The next person I want to invite to join me is Mrs. Nike Olujembola. Nike is a human resource and development consultant and founder of Administrative Support Services Limited. She has offered various human resource services and developed curriculum and delivered face-to-face soft skills training to organizations in the public and private sector, hospitality industry, property development industry, interior decoration, architectural building industry, and the academia, to mention a few. She's highly interested in transferring knowledge that will enhance effective customer service delivery and in skills acquisition for developing competent personnel to meet the ever-growing demands within the Nigerian business community. She got involved in the political process by joining Afenifere and is now the secretary Afenifere Lagos State. Please make welcome Mrs. Nike Olujembola. You're welcome. Right, Toby and Nike, you're most welcome. The topic we're dealing with is how to make your vote count. And I'd like to start with Toby, who has actually contested before. And, you know, what I want to say is that the topic itself is like rhetorical because, you know, your votes should count, but we're not asking how to make your votes count. The whole idea of democracy is that our votes should count. So what is your experience, Toby? Did your votes count when you ran? Did you feel that all who voted for you were recorded and it was reflected at the end of the day?
Okay, thank you so much, and I'm happy to be here. To answer your question literally, yes, the votes counted. The reason why I say this is because when we were doing our campaign, we were strategic about how we approached the campaign. We looked at areas where people normally vote, and we looked at areas where the voter turnout is not so much. And it happened to be that the areas we didn't focus on are areas where we had the highest number of votes. So it means that people were just responding to the campaign and what they saw, and they needed a different person to represent them. I also went ahead to go to the head office at INEC at Yaba to confirm those votes, and those votes were there. So yes, your vote counts. But there was something the Commissioner for Voter Education said. He says, in a democracy, it's fundamental that your vote should not only your vote should not only count, but it should also make an impact, or it should also count. In the sense that yes, our votes counted, but if there is rigging, if there's manipulation, and if there's poor collation of the results, then my votes don't really count. Yes, the people who supported me and voted for me on that day, yes, their votes counted. But on the grand scheme of things, it didn't count. Because if I had 300 votes and somebody had 200, and he now goes and falsifies the documents and puts about 1,000 votes into it, that's about 1,200. So the 300 I have, yes, they counted, but it doesn't count. So yes, your vote counts, but it doesn't count on the grand scheme of things.
So basically what you are saying is your vote can count at the polling center where you have your agents there, but beyond that, you have no control over what happens. Let me turn to you, Nike, because I know that aside from being in Afenifere, you're also very involved with SDP. What's your experience party-wide in the last elections, the SDP election? I know for Toby has said that his own votes counted, but generally party-wide, what was the experience?
Thank you very much for having me. I also double up as the secretary for SDP Lagos State. I had never been involved in politics before, so it was an eye-opener. Eye-opener in the sense that I belong to Afenifere. Afenifere is a political movement, that births or supports a political party. So the party they supported at that time was SDP. So we were actually given SDP to go and build. I mean, they gave us Etiosa. And they said, okay, go and build up Etiosa. And my husband was actually very involved with me because I was green, And we were practically knocking on doors of friends, come and join this party, let's build this party. Let's take over Etiosa. Let it be a model LGA, We went Parkview, we were knocking at, on the doors of houses, our friends, and they weren't interested. The people who were interested were either the security guards, the Métis, the grassroots, they were the ones who were interested. And when we started in political meetings, majority of the people who came for meetings were grassroots. I mean, people will say, oh, I'm busy, I don't have time, I beg, If you don't, building a nation is not a walk in the park. It takes time. And it takes your life. It's draining, it is draining. It was a wonderful experience in that I couldn't believe that the educated and enlightened people were not interested, per se. But the grassroots, I mean, you may say, well, they don't have anything to do. But I wouldn't say that, Some of them actually do want a better Nigeria. They want to see things work, Yes, some take advantage, but even amongst the educated, a lot of the educated take advantage. Their friends become governors and commissioners, and they just take advantage. But when we talk about actually joining a political party to build a nation, we are not there yet. Unfortunately, we are not there yet. And I'm still in SDP. I mean, SDP is in court. I'm still very much in Afenifere until they decide to choose another political party. And I think I would say that things are changing a little bit. I think everybody is just tired of the status quo. But we all need, to come together and set aside our personal interests. Because if I tell you that personal interests is not it's not, it doesn't form a major part in politics, I'll be lying to you. If we can set that aside, then, Nigeria would be a wonderful place.
Thank you very much, Nike. I'm coming back to you, Toby. I know from my own personal experience, I've always volunteered on the estate where I live. During registration, when INEC come to register, I go and spend time in the park, and I assist especially the elderly. And on election days, most election days, I wake up early because often the voters get there before the INEC officers. So what we do is I go with sheets of paper and get people to write their names so we know the order in which people have come. And by the time the INEC people come, then we can say this is number 1, this is number 2, and I've always tried to help. But going back to this issue of vote counting, there's one observation I made, especially in the last election. The, what do you call the sheets that we... No. Well, the ballot paper was so long that there were quite a number of voided votes. You understand? So for many people, their votes didn't count. So what are some of the things? And you also mentioned that, yes, your 300 votes counted, but who knows whether you won or you didn't quite win, because there's another level where there's a bit of manipulation. So for people who want to get involved, in what way can our involvement mitigate some of these things such that people's votes don't just count at the polling booth where they voted, but it counts all the way to results, and at the end of the day, the majority actually, the person who got the majority, largest number of votes, is the person who gets the office. What are some of the things you think can be done?
Okay, that's a very good question. But you said for people's votes to count on the day of election. But if I take a deeper look at it, people's votes would actually start from the beginning of the registration process to get your PVC. That is where votes actually start counting from. Because we have about 66 million voters across the country. And if you look at our demographics, we are supposed to have about 105 million voters. So you already have about 40-something million voters who are not participating. So their votes are not counting. Out of that 66 million, you have a very poor voter turnout because of voter apathy, because of so many other issues. So if you take that percentage, a large people are not even participating and their votes are not counting. So let's even break it further down. Let's take a look at INEC. Let's take a look at their process. As in Lagos, we have 6 million voters. Our population is 22 million. If we go by our voter population, we are supposed to have 56% of the people are above 18 years of age. So if you take 22 million, we should have about 11 to 12 million voters in Lagos. And the election that was won by the governor in 2019 was about, maybe 750 to about 1 million votes. So you are looking at a very small percentage of people who are deciding who wins the office. So let's take a look at the numbers. So we are supposed to have 11 to 12 million voters in Lagos, and we have only 20 registration centers by INEC. Each one is at every local government. So if you divide 20 by 12 million, that means 600,000 people to one registration center. So one is going to be stressful for the people who want to resolve issues, because some people have changed locations, some people have lost their PVCs, their PVCs are damaged. For you to even go there and to ensure that the process is smooth and fast, for you to get your PVC back is a problem. So some people are discouraged by that, so their votes don't count. The other part is even on the side of INEC, they don't have enough manpower to be able to attend to 600,000 people. It's too much to ask for them. The foundation that I am a part of, we have been registering people. At the beginning of it, we were registering about maybe 10 to 15 people per day. That was for the online registration. Then, after a month, we were supposed to go to the local government and continue that process, because after the online registration, there's the physical registration. When people got there, first, all of them were very angry at what the process that they had. They even started calling me that, see, this thing that you are doing, the whole process. I was even taking the heat for it, and I don't work with INEC. So I also went there to check what was happening. They said, oh, server is down. This, you know, the normal issues you have when it comes to registration process. So people from that 10 or 15 number that we're having, that 10 or 15 people that we're having daily, it dropped to about 1 or 2 people per day. Because others were telling them, don't worry, they won't register you. When you go there, it all ends here. It is not, the process is not smooth. So most people have been discouraged, so their votes wouldn't count. There's also the other side of Nigerians at the diaspora. The senior special advisor to the president on foreign affairs and the diaspora said in 2017 that there were 15 million Nigerians abroad. And you know, with the way people have been jackpotting out of the country, so from 2017 to 2021, about 4 years, so they are projecting that 20 million people are outside Nigeria. And our process doesn't capture them. So 20 million people are not voting. So, and again, these 20 million people who are outside of Nigeria, they remit about $20 billion to the economy every year. Not even for the fact that in the presidential election, definitely it can turn things around, because the difference between the person who won and the runner-up is not so large. So 20 million people can make an impact. So when you look at the process, you see that so many people, even before the day of election, there are so many people whose votes wouldn't count. You also look at the women, and you also look at the youth. The youth counts for about 35% of the population. But when you look at voter turnout, they are always the lowest percentage. And this happens because there's no proper voter education, there's no proper voter awareness. I believe that if we begin to imbibe that culture of participating in the electoral process and in the political process, this will enable people to be conscious, because knowledge is power. So they will act on that knowledge and know that this is an important process for us to participate in, so that their votes can count. So, you know, all of these things we've discussed, most people don't look at that area, but if all of those people are captured, it will definitely change the political landscape, and we need to get those people on board. So then you now even come to election day, where, you know, as you mentioned, people come late, you know, and the process is cumbersome, because after you are accredited, you have to wait, come back again. Why can't it just be a simple process? You come, you spend 5 minutes, you vote, and you go. So if we are able to resolve all these process issues, I believe that election will be better, then more people's vote would count. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me come back to you, Nike. As a party, you know, having identified quite a number of these things, what is the party? Is your party thinking of any way to alleviate some of these problems? You know, do you have any plans, even something like voter education? What's the party doing to sort of like make sure that these problems are at least minimized?
Well, at local government levels and ward levels, at the meeting, a lot of civic education is going on, even now, more even now. And I know that a lot of these things are being said, are being spoken about. But like Toby said, I want to believe that you know the INEC man, and that is with knowing the INEC personnel in Etiosa. If the system is not working, there's just very little anybody can do. There's just very little. The system is slow. He may not have power in his office. There may not be a generator. Even if there's a generator, you'd have to help them with buying petrol. And for how long can one sustain that? You know, but like Toby said, and like Mr. Okoya said, it's time for each and everybody to get involved. If, for example, okay, INEC has started registering people, or there is a stand in Etiosa, we have quite a number of estate residential associations. You know, there's nothing wrong in saying, okay, what do you need? How can we help? You know, okay, is it power? We can rent a maybe 3 kV generator. I don't think the system runs on that much power, you know, and ensure that the staff, you know, is there. If the staff knows that he's accountable, he will be there. I mean, when Toby called, I think we spoke and Toby mentioned, oh, some people are having problems, the INEC man is not there. And I thought, okay, I used to know the person that was in Etiosa before. I called him and he said, oh, I'm back in Etiosa. And I said, but we have people who have been saying that they go there and there is nobody there. And he said, no, I'm there every day. Maybe he wasn't, I don't know. And so I went back to Toby. Well, the man says he's there every day. So maybe from that moment he knew that, at least some people know that I am here. Because if you are not accountable, you may come to work today and not come tomorrow, and there's nothing anybody can do. But for the parties, yes, at ward level meetings, a lot is going on about civic education. A lot.
I want to go into the area of disputes after elections, and I'm going to start with you, Nike. I don't know how familiar you are with the process, because sometimes when people feel that the votes of their supporters have not counted, they go to court. What do you think of that process? In terms of the timing and the way the tribunal is constituted? I don't know if you're familiar with it, but let me start with you. And I'll probably drag Mr. Ukoya into this question, since he too has been a candidate and he was talking about, they had to go to a runoff and all of that.
You'll be amazed to know that it's not a haphazard thing. There are laws. Mr. Okoya, there are laws, and you have to follow those laws. So when you hear, oh, there is a tribunal, it's not because somebody just woke up. Or even for you to get to that place of being a tribunal, there are other processes you must have gone through to ensure that, yes, you need to get there. Or else, then that means any small discrepancy, will land you there. But there's a process. I don't really cannot, maybe Mr. Wukaya will help, but there's a process that we go through. If we have a candidate who says, you know what, I know that I had more than this number of votes, and you need evidence. You can't just say, oh, I know I had a certain number of votes. It must be evident. INEC works with data.
Let me throw it to you, Mr. Okoya, and then I'll come back to you.
Okay, maybe the lawyers will be the best, but from my practical experience, it's not as simple as Mrs. Olujembola mentioned. So the first thing after a result is that you want to get certified true copy of election results from the polling units to the ward, to the local government, to the state, depending on where you are making a contest. INEC doesn't easily produce it. Most times, if you follow the cases, they always do things by substituted service. If you write, I can say that after 2019 general election, if you had, maybe since I was an interested party, it took more than a year before the final results were published by INEC itself. For months, almost up to a year, Lagos INEC could not give the certified true copy of the election results in Etiosa to break down the total LGA, the total per ward, the total per polling unit. Because all they did were to do some, I would say, some slight wuru at the total level. But if you who are in possession of the records at the building blocks, and they give a building block result that derive that total, clearly you will see that there are some building blocks that you have that don't agree with even INEC official results. So it took them time, such that it's after a time where you are like statute barred. So when you have an election, if the umpire is impartial, when anybody is disputing, actually he is the one being put on the spot. And if they had professional, sorry I'm using the word, they have some professional shame. If somebody says that, look, I contest the result, just like you did WAEC, just like we went to university, madam, you are a professional accountant. If you are disputing that this exam, in this marking scheme, I scored the right thing. What they will do is that they will go to your examiner. The examiner, in fact, will have to show that, look, this is the paper, this was the marking scheme. When I marked it, this is the way the checker checked, and everything is correct. So the person that is the umpire doesn't show the zeal out there to say that, these results that you are disputing, they should be the first to say that, look, you are wrong, and this is the actual thing. In reality, if you follow almost all the cases, they are all manner of technicalities. Most of the election cases end up at one manner of technicality or the other, either by the fact that the time has passed or somebody didn't sign properly. Not like you dispute an election and INEC now comes that, look, these are all the polling units in the country or the polling units in the state. This is the result in each polling unit. They come, they have the physical ballot papers. They go to the archives and say, look, in this unit, when do you have time? If you like, bring people. We are there for the next 2 days, 3 days, even 1 week. We will work 24/7. Bring your people. We will show you the ballot papers that showed the result of each polling unit. I've not seen any case wherein the umpire will show the zeal to prove that the result he gave out was a correct result. And once I don't see that, I carry some of my accountant training of the substance over the legal form. It now tells you, when you are not confident about something that has been given to you that you are the custodian of, then it kind of tells you that the law is there on the right of a political party or a candidate to dispute an election and what you have to go through. But I believe that the umpire, in this case, because the umpire is the one where all the aces are with, in this case, doesn't show the impartiality at all times with all zeal to show in a very credible manner that these were your working papers and these were the results. So because of that, we always have a judgment, but more often than not, you don't have justice from that judgment. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm looking at the way the argument is going. We want people to get involved. But listening to all the presentations, it looks like we have institutional barriers. And so my next question to you, Toby, is how? Because how can we, we don't even want to get to the case of court. Because listening to K, 1 year, you give up. How can we make our votes count ab initio? What can we do as ordinary individuals that we are here today now and we've listened to all of this and we are thinking, I still want to go ahead. I'm not discouraged. What are the simple things that you will tell everybody here this evening and those who are watching online? What are the simple things that I can decide to do as an individual that will not just make my vote count, but will defend my vote?
Okay, thank you. I would just like to add something to what the last speaker said concerning going to court with your case. I think what you can do is to ensure that you have an agent at every polling unit and you ensure that the person gets the result of that polling unit. INEC system has improved a bit. If you look at Anambra State election, there's a bimodal voter accreditation system in place. So even though they are still collating results at Anambra, they are updating results of every polling unit. So immediately, what that bimodal voter accreditation system does is that it accredits people. It also does voter registration and it uploads the result. So for every polling unit that completed voting yesterday, they uploaded the results. So now you have your own agents who have the results. So you would cross-check with what they have uploaded online. I went to the portal yesterday. You could it's voterelectionresult.com. You can actually check it right now and see the results of polling units in our Anambra State. So you just cross-check what your agent has and what is posted online. So INEC is saying this is the result. So you can hold them to that result sheet that they have pasted and see if there are any discrepancies. So it helps you form a better case going to court. So that's just what I wanted to add to it. And so talking about vote should count. So INEC said they are aiming to register 20 million people by 2023. And they started June 28. And between June 28 to today, which is making it about 18 months, they've been able to do the online registration for about 5.9 million people. and they've been able to attend to both online and physical registration, about 1.5 million people. So it brings it to about, let's say, across the nation, for the online registration, it brings it up to about, let's say, for the physical one, it brings it to about, they attend to about 17,000 people per day across the nation. So, but if they are aiming to register 20 million people before 2023 election, that means they would, that's 18 months time. So that means they would register about 1 million people per month. But if there was continuous voter registration right from 2019, let's say after swearing in, after June 12, they start immediately June 2019, and it's up to June 2021, that's 24 months. So going by their projection, they should have been able to register 24 million people before the start date of this year. So they should have been able to register, if so, cumulatively, they should have been able to register 44 million people. So what we can do as citizens is to advocate that there should always be continuous voters registration. They should never stop. It should be a continuous and ongoing process. We had already mentioned that at 20 local governments, they have to attend to about 600,000 people in Lagos. But if that system, if that process is continuous, it would help in reducing the cumbersome process that we have there. Now, INEC has a target, and the responsibility of getting people to participate in the electoral process and even in the political process, the responsibility also lies on us as individuals because it impacts us. The only way you can build a nation is through the political process. Governance is an offshoot of the political process, so all of us must be involved. And the simplest way to do that is you yourself go and register to vote. Go and get your PVC. The second thing now is that all your friends, your family, your mom, your dad, your enemy, everybody must go. You must encourage everyone to go and get their PVCs. The other part is that you can also help in registering people. The online process is very easy. So people, even your gate man, your domestic staff, you must help them. What government can do on their own end is to make it mandatory that every civil servant, from the federal to the state to the local government, it must be a criterion that everyone must have their PVC. Even in our offices, most of us who are employers of labor, churches, religious bodies, everybody, make it a criteria that everybody must register and get their PVC. And this block that we are looking at is usually the block that doesn't go out to vote. That is why issues that they are faced with are not addressed, because the politician only responds to people who vote. So if we have the elite, we have the middle class, and the working class begin to vote, it's definitely going to improve the election process. So the other part is that we should also volunteer to be ad hoc staff for INEC. If the youth corpers can do that, why can't we do that? And I'm sure that they might be able to intimidate the corpers, but maybe you and myself will be able to have enough resistance to say, no, we are not going to allow that. All of us stay close to a particular polling unit. Why can't we be agents at that particular unit? And we are not even working for any party. We just want a free and credible process. Even if it's your party that is not winning or a party you don't like that is winning, ensure that the process is seamless. The other part is that you can volunteer to be an agent for any of the political parties. It doesn't mean you're a member of that party. You just want to represent them or supervise for the process to ensure that there's a smooth process. The other part, there's also another idea I have. It's possible that we can all have the office of the citizens, we can all have a candidate, our own candidate, who we can run an election for and run a campaign for. And that candidate should be voter participation. Just the way I was running my own campaign for people to elect me. Let's have voter participation as our own candidate. I mean that by creating awareness, by campaigning, ensuring that the streets are littered with reasons why people should come out and vote. Information about voter registration, the process, and the impact of why we need to come out to vote. So there are about 56,000 new polling units across the country, and we had an existing 156 or 100,000 polling units. Why can't we identify every polling unit within our community so that people around will say, oh, my polling unit is not so far from where I live. I can actually just stroll down and get there. Then we also, all across the road, come out and vote. If you don't vote, you're not participating in the process. If you don't vote, you would have poor light, you wouldn't have good infrastructure, you have a bad economy. So what we need to do is to sensitize and change the mindset of the people so that we can do that maybe 6 months to the time of election, so that alone has changed the mindset of the people and people would come out to vote. On the part of government, I think they should also do well to sensitize the people and also inform the people about the process. Then they should also try to review the curriculum in the schools, look at civic education and make it more engaging and make it more relatable for the people in the primary school and the secondary school to participate in that process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know if we have any questions from the floor. Do we have any questions? Okay. On that note, I think our time is fast spent. I'd like to thank Mrs. Olujembola and Mr. Adejoroluwa for the participation in this panel discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this amazing session. Very educative. Thank you very much. So at this point, we're going to introduce the second speaker, Mr. Adeniyi Kunu. So I'll just read his profile. Adeniyi T. Kunu is a researcher, teacher, and broadcast journalist who has been in the profession for about 2 decades. A graduate of English and Literature from Lagos State University and the University of Lagos, respectively. A journalist by divine and deliberate appointment, Adeniyi Kunu has had the privilege of being trained at the foremost National Broadcast Academy and by the BBC. His passion to create impact has brought him on other radio platforms besides Lagos Talk 91.3, where he lends his voice to national discourse each week. Adeniyi Kunu is also a consistent analyst and consultant with a number of television stations in Nigeria, whilst his analysis has also brought him on platforms in Kenya, South Africa, Russia, and the USA. His book reviews and articles have also been published widely. Adeniyi Kunu has worked in the public sector and now also a managing partner of Ketamov Communications Concept and Kunu Media Production. At present, Adeniyi Kunu holds the award as the best analyst in Nigeria, as he is member of several professional media associations. So at this point, we'll invite him. Please, can we give a round of applause? You're welcome, sir.
Good evening, everybody. Let me say thank you very much, sir, for the privilege of coming here this evening. It's always a privilege when one has this kind of opportunity to speak with people. But one thing is very fundamental, which I believe we should put in our minds. The numbers don't actually translate to change, but of course those who are determined to make the change. Don't forget, every invention has the name of somebody who owns the patent. The refrigerator has a name to it. The television has a name to it. The cars we drive have names to it, and one person will always be the person that they say has done this. So for each one of us, the impact is about us. And I think that this is an auspicious moment for us to move forward. So one more time, sir, I say a big thank you for this privilege. In my pocket here this evening, I have 2 things. One, I have my voter card, and I hope I find the second. I have this particular card that many people don't want to see of the ruling party. Why have I brought it here? Is to say that you walk the talk. All my life as a media professional, I've never had the opportunity to have my thumb on anybody's paper because I work. If I'm not in Lagos, I'm in some other parts of the country as a broadcast journalist trying to ensure that the elections are covered. I came in here from the Southeast South 2 a.m. this morning. I was at Ihiala, I was at Idemili, of course, Nnewi, I was at Onitsha. I left there to Ikodek when I was at Uyo. I came back from Patani to Port Harcourt, went to Eleme, got to Ahoda, was in Warri, got to Delta. I got in here 14 minutes past midnight, got to my house 2 a.m. I slept for 3 hours, went to church, and I'm here. What I'm saying is the business of changing this country is a difficult job. And if you're not ready to be burnt and bruised, you're wasting time. I have to be sincere. In the little profile they read, I worked with the Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria in my early years as a broadcast journalist. I have tons of queries. I think nobody has the highest number of queries I got because something in me just refused to go the government way. And I got the bashing from soft queries to admin queries because I felt there has to be things that must be revamped here. So I came against the law 1,001 times and I got the bashing 2,000 times. What I'm saying in essence is this business of transforming this country, of getting involved, is a difficult job. And the reality is we have to start that particular thing we must do by asking ourselves very serious questions. So in 2014, I told myself, what's wrong with the PDP? Of course, I've been trained as a journalist, you can't belong to a party. And it was just that I could not participate. But I said, let me even belong to one party. So I took a careful check, much of what you said, sir. I checked, and that was also part of what you started with. I know you're the SDP, so I'm still going to come to something that also touches on you. So I went to a particular registration point on my street, and having read here and there to know what the APC has, I knew that, you know, it's a marriage of a number of parties. And of course, we also know that there was a runaway people that joined to become the APC. Don't forget, we had new APC, or new PDP, I beg your pardon, sir, that joined, switched gears. So I felt, okay, if you could have people that I believe have some sense in them. You know, I actually looked at somebody like an Ogbonaya Ono, because one of the things I don't joke with in formations, or, you know, when people come together, is level of knowledge of people. Not so much about formal education alone. There are people who are not educated the formal, but they've built brilliant businesses. They've actually built people. So I always look at people who are resource persons, and I felt the APC, of course, I didn't look so much in the direction of President Muhammadu Buhari because his antecedents are there, but I felt perhaps his cries after he lost the third election and the fact that he surrounded himself and still surrounded himself with some people that think they should know better. So I decided to put my name together, and of course, the card came to me after a year. That's the first thing. I took it, I held it. This voter card also, I did one at a place called Samaru. For those of you who perhaps have traveled in Kaduna, particularly Zaria, I did it there. So the bottlenecks regarding transferring the card made me, I decided to do another one at Etiosa. So they did a very good picture, but when it came out, my face became black. So this is another thing. So, but I took it because it's my name. I kept it. Why did I take these steps? I want to be able to tell people that you don't have the right to say a word if you do not participate. Not that I have used it to vote, because I've never had the chance to vote. I told you 3 days I've been around Southeast, Southwest, and it's deliberate. As a media person, you don't fly if you want on the spot account. You only pray to be protected, so you go. When I got to Ihiala, I raised my hand and we walked for about 10 minutes. The vehicle I was in, we had to be, they told the man, pack these people, so we trekked and raised their hands. One of the security operatives told me, I'm not raising my hands above my head enough. And do you know the interesting part, sir? I deliberately spoke Hausa to those on this side of the road. Everybody on this side of the road was Hausa that I spoke to. This, I believe, is not a church garden, but is the house of the Lord. I confirmed it. I don't need lies for nothing. You'd ask yourself the question, why the siege against the people that are legal citizens of this country? I'm happy that the elections, to a great extent, have not been violent. I'm very happy. But the reality is, perception index is one key factor of measuring things. If you want to set up a country, an organization or a company, feasibility studies in the course of being done, perception index is very key. If you want to get into another role from one level to the other, perception index is key. So it's a factor of attaining to certain leadership positions in these times. So what is the perception of the people about those who lead them? Let me shock you, sir. The Anambra elections, especially those who were to transport security operatives on that morning, they already mobilized them with 50% of what should go to them, sir. At the last minute, they collected 50%, the transporter disappeared. Maybe into thin air or underwater, but they are nowhere to be found. That's one. Some of the ad hoc staff, over 50% of those that have been trained preparatory to these elections, they disappeared, on that same day. So people took sensitive materials to their own polling centers without escort of security operatives, and that's a fact. Excuse me, I just returned 2 a.m. today, and I'm telling you for the records. I think of these stories, you can find snippets of it in Premium Times. Some of these stories don't get told. I am in the media. Some stories get killed not to go out. Yes, I'm saying it here. If we want change, let's say it as it is. It is what I do. I have been called from Chad 2 different times, but we have decided to go all the way to do it. Let us help this country with the immensity of potential it has to actually get out of the murky waters that it is into, Let's go ahead and talk about this. One thing that I feel we can begin with, as an institution, you don't want me to mention church, but let me fall into the temptation of mentioning church. By religious affiliation, I'm Christian. By being a patriot, I'm Nigerian. I schooled in Lagos. This is my ancestral home. I served in the north. To a great extent, I can still go to any part of the north without asking for a hotel, because I made friends and I kept those friends. So I can sleep in people's homes and not blink. What I'm saying in essence is the business of leadership for anybody, and I mean anybody, sir, even at the councillorship level, begins with knowledge. What's the knowledge of even self? So I come to the home. How many times a week do we allow the children we have or siblings to interact with the neighbors? Let's say you don't live in your home, for instance. How much of your neighbor do you know? We're talking about relationships here. Sir, you were asking a question about why is it that the church doesn't just galvanize the numbers it has. The holy book that you teach, sir, says the enemy of a man are they of his own house. Come and contradict that everlasting statement and let me see how you succeed. It is when somebody in this gathering decides to run that you realize that his behavior is bad, his looks terrible, his English, you can't think about it. It is then you remember that he doesn't have the charisma. Then if he passes those tests, does he have the money is the next thing you talk about. Then later if he passes the money test, you think about it, who are his friends? Then if he passes that test, you say, what has he even done all the while that is here? So you start bringing one test to the other. Then if he passes those tests, you say he laughs too much with people's wives and he has his own. Sir, you begin to see that the enemy of the person that wants to help solve a problem are they of his own house. We only hear of the story of Pelé, the great footballer. His marital life was not something you have in print, because at times great people have flaws, but they outwit their flaws by some of the things that impact society. The David we read about did not only sleep with somebody's wife and produce children, he also killed the husband. But the point is, they examined the state of this guy's mind. He has his feelings, but what is his impact? Some of the people who have called prostitutes are the ones that have housed men and women of God. Rahab, sir. Are we together today? So we begin with the level of knowledge that each of us has. Do you know the person who lives in the next door to you? In the past 6 months, have you taken a bag? Forget about the fact that the person may be very comfortable. Just goodwill, goodwill, goodwill. And you knock on the door. We feel this weekend we should just sit together and laugh. You don't bring it. Let's sit. Let's just get to know each other. How is work? How is family? When have you and myself done that? I lived in a house where the person I was closest to was Muslim. Downstairs, I'd lived in Oworonshoki before. Every time we were to have their salad celebration, before the Ramadan starts, myself and my wife would decide. We package eggs, we buy fruits. Excuse me, if I followed what people say, me, Adeni Ikunu, I won't do that. But the reality is, the way the person connects to God may be different from mine, but there's a God in the picture. Do you respect that God in the person's picture? Do you even remember that at times we talk about the fact that the way you treat somebody begins to make the person feel, I really need to know more about this person so that I can get involved. So I ask again, how much knowledge do we have about the neighbors? When was the last time, if we have kids that are still growing, sir, that you allowed your own kids freely go to the house of your neighbors and play? We pray and shout and do everything and cast and bind, but we lack the faith enough to allow our kids just to play. When you are asleep, do you know what happens? What is the level of knowledge you have of the person closest to you? Let me say this. If you want to solve political problems, let's solve the ones that are closest to us first. Those are basics. You have to solve the one that is in your Jerusalem first. So today, I will not quote statistics and figures because I have them, but let's begin with us as a people. So we go ahead now. Knowledge is first for self. In this church, sir, since the 2019 election, you probably have had a number of people. So if, for instance, the population of this church is 200 or 300, and you had people who were between the ages of 14 and 18, to be about 20% of the church in 2019. So that simply means by now, you'd have had a number of people graduate to become 18 years, 19 years, I dare say, how many times have we organized? If we want to solve this problem, we begin from our home. The people that are in our homes, for instance, how many times you would ask, let me begin with me. I've sat with, for instance, my 18-year-old daughter. While I'm telling her to know how to navigate against premarital sex, have I told her how to navigate against wicked politicians? Has that knowledge been given? Have I told her how to make proper choices when she begins to vote? Have I sat down to make her just sit with me and understand that these are the directions you take in terms of making choices that affect the corporate existence of your career path? Because at times we look at those small things and throw it out of the window. They are basics. How many times have we sat with our sons? For instance, in my house, I told my wife, if a visitor comes, two things. I love football, yes. If you come to my house and it's 10 p.m. or I come to the house like this and it's 10, the TV cannot be on another channel. You have to watch the news. So if I met you as a visitor or as somebody who is part of my house, maybe I came home at 8 and everybody is watching movies, I keep quiet, and it's 10 and I put it on news and you get up, you're in trouble. You will sit there and finish it with us. You cannot sleep. If any family member comes and they are watching movies, everybody is happy. Once it's 10, immediately I switch it. They want to, I say, sit down there. You must finish this news with us. You were not sleeping before. Immediately it's news. Some people start sleeping. I hear them. Wake up. This is part of what will affect your life. Because you don't understand. Area boys are legislating about your life. You go into UK, masters, US, PhD. You came back then, an area boy that doesn't understand how you sweated to want to bring change. He's talking about things that will turn all your effort of many years downside. And you are there holding your hand together. Knowledge for self is first. How much do you know about your immediate environment? You were talking about knocking doors and everything. Ogasa, you can't knock doors because you want to go and vie for a position. Have you knocked door at the level of CDS? Have you knocked door by participating in cleaning the gutters in your area? Have you knocked doors by even laughing with the children on your street, but you have political ambition and one day you wake up? Who do you want to bear rule over? What is your social quotient? What is your PR level with the people that are on your street? What's your knowledge of those that you find who perhaps don't have jobs? Of the joints where they smoke Indian hemp, do you know the joints? Have you for once just breathed in to understand why they are smoking? At times we think we know why people smoke. No. Some people smoke because they are frustrated. And it is not everybody who smokes hemp that is jobless. Point of note. So you find out that the work is so much that we think we know, sir. Sir, we know little, sir. We know little. So I want to say that where we must begin, sir, we seek knowledge for self-development. And we seek knowledge to impact. And that knowledge must begin from our respective homes. You need to ask yourself, Do you know that there are times when my wife brings some question? Obviously, when you have a woman, women interests differ. My interests differ. But she realizes there are two major things. Because I was active, I played football, as you know, years ago, but didn't agree us and walk now. And in the course of that, immediately we married, she understood my interest. Of course, she's not a movie person, but she has her interest. But she realizes that this man has interest in this thing. And I encourage her also. There are times when my wife narrates certain things. In my mind, I say, Chai, this woman don't catch me for everything the way they do. I'm impressed. There was a day I went somewhere, they were talking about analysis. I said, if my wife catch on her for football analysis, I go wrong. This is a woman that knew little about it before. But now she understands who is on the transfer, who has scored this goal, who is consistent, who is not playing well. And I'm wondering how knowledge for self and knowledge to impact others. So when we want to solve problems, we begin with knowledge for self and knowledge for what? For development. Then, if you did a little bit of check, at times when we talk about finding solution, don't forget we're talking about getting involved. Knowledge is first. If people don't have knowledge of even who they are, how many times have we described character traits? How many times have we told some of our children that talk, keep quiet, you talk too much. I don't know who you resemble in this house. Now your blood, maybe your great-grandpapa. How many times have we realized that some of the qualities these kids show are qualities that we should understand and help them harness? Because the truth is, we are sitting on a keg of gunpowder, but we pray nobody bring the matchbox near, because everybody gets burnt in it, including myself. And because the political class, either by commission or omission, are refusing, sir, you belong there, even if you are not one of those who do the negatives. There are certain things that because you may be few in number, and others who would delay certified true copies for over 1 year. How can you get justice? We make things difficult. We all belong in that circle one way or the other. So knowledge for self, knowledge for development. If you check places that are very wealthy, I don't like using allusions outside, but let me cross boundary now and go to the US. If you check the budget of California and the budget of New York, not New York City, sir, New York State, for 2021 or 2022, you find out that whilst the one for New York is in excess of 200 billion, the one for California is also in excess of that. And what's the population of this particular state? New York is now up to 30 million. California should be above 30 million. If you check our 2022 budget, sir, please do the billion and use it in maths. I don't want to say the figures, but I know some people are good in maths here. What I'm saying is the premium we place on knowledge is very key to our development. So when individuals are knowledgeable, then they impact with knowledge. Then it goes on to impact the economy. In California, you have Silicon Valley. You have the University of California, Los Angeles. You have Hollywood and some others. So what does the university do? Don't forget, you also have Stanford there. Stanford, University of California, Los Angeles, they both have connection with Silicon Valley. So there's what? Synergy. The knowledge from the university goes to Silicon Valley. If Silicon Valley have certain innovations or certain concepts, they come and align with the people that are at the university, and they translate those ideas to practical solutions that most of us are making use of in our phones. Hollywood is there. What people don't understand is beyond making movies, Hollywood is also producing room for people who create landmark creations in cameras. Those are some kind of engineering works. That simply means they've been able to create knowledge for self, for development, and things continue to move. What I'm bringing out of this conversation is for us to solve the problem from today, let's look at those small areas. Don't think your kids are little. The knowledge our kids are exposed to this time, if we give them 5% of that knowledge to understand this country, I tell you, they will help salvage the situation. They know a lot about foreign things. They know a lot about fashion. They know a lot about phones. A child that can actually manipulate the latest iPhone is not dull. That means you should tap part of that percentile of that child's capacity and let it be put to use in helping to revamp the country and the situation we find ourselves. Let us go further, my good people. what's the level of interest? I've talked about knowledge. But you see, knowledge can either be something they force you to get, or it can be something you deliberately get. When we were young, we find out that some of our parents and our friends, they will use cane. Go to school. They'll be flogging some children to go. We know, see, those children won't stay house. But what do? They let them go to that school and get this knowledge. So when we're talking about knowledge, what is the level of interest that we have, for instance, here? Because if I want to talk about finding solution, we're supposed to profess solution from here, sir. Am I correct? So what's the level of interest, sir, that the leadership of this gathering has in making sure that we find solution to that teeming political problem? That's another thing. You see, one of the things people don't quite understand, and I'm sorry to say, I will go the church route again. Jesus was the smartest Alec, and he's still the smartest Alec that ever lived. Beyond trying to connect what he said to secular knowledge or spiritual knowledge, you have to understand the witty nature of Jesus in his responses. With every sense of humility, I don't know how many times I've gone through the Bible. And of course, I have my Quran, of course. Because if you are dealing with complexities of societal problems, you have to be knowledgeable on different grounds, sir. If you want to solve people's problem, whilst you are holding on to the anchor of your faith, you must also understand what happens. And the reason Jesus contended with the Pharisees and Sadducees, he understood the old script. And in dealing with them, he was able to use the template they understand and let them see the lacuna, according to what lawyers say, to create the new. So what's the knowledge we have, the interest we have of understanding the whole that we should grasp in creating new solutions? So whilst we are here, for instance, I dare say, what is our level of interest beyond creating the inner man, creating the spirit-filled man? Because the spirit-filled man remains subservient to the physical man, because Jesus would never have succeeded without operating within the flesh. He came in the flesh. He would have stayed in heaven and saved everybody. Bam. He would have said there are not needed 12 disciples. But Jesus knew there was a limitation, because the earth has its workings. And what did you do? I'm sorry I have to go that way, because I need to operate within a context of common knowledge, sir. My apologies, I'm going to church route, but I need to do that. So the context of common knowledge is, he came in the frame of man so that he will do what? He will impact those he has created. When he says, occupy till I come, it's open-ended. Politics, occupy. Economy, occupy. Academics, occupy. Technology, occupy. But why are we not occupying? We have chosen the ones we feel we need, and we've left the rest. We fail to even understand that there's more responsibility on our shoulders to take charge. In fact, many indoctrinations, both in Christianity, both in Islam, and some have numbed the level of enthusiasm that people should have when it comes to impacting. You need to ask yourself, the rains were coming down. I said I came here 2 a.m. Now, before I came here, one of my very, very, very senior pastors wrote 4 books and dedicated. They gave me the privilege of reviewing 2. Maryland. I had to go there and do the presentation of review before I started coming here. You need to be interested about the impact you want to make before doing this. So you'd have to ask yourself, sir, if, for instance, we have invited some, maybe, I know this gathering may not have it so comfortable bringing in a so-called Malian, but there are 1,001 other musicians that would appeal to the interest of many people here. If the rain were falling, poppies and mummies, some people will still be here today. So we have to look at the parallel or the connection between the interest of the people that this program was put together for and why they are not here. Nobody will call us a generation that is not creating impact. But the point remains that we can't do it alone. We need the knowledge of those that are younger than us, the knowledge of those who are older than us, for us to strike the balance of the change that we desire to see. But in the absence of that, how do we do it? That's why I said at the beginning of this conversation that everything created has the name of a man to it. So let's forget about the fact that we are not in expected numbers. But let us also say it's as a result of interest. What is the interest of the people that you, sir, that leads us here? You spend your time for everything you've done. I believe today is whether Thanksgiving service. You've probably been preparing for the past 3 days. You're here. Then the people for which you are sparing the time and energy, they are absent. Is that not something deep for us? Forget about the fact that people are online. We know that online has created lots of reasons for people to hibernate. But elections in this part of the world, ditto every other part of the world, needs an offline impact. The almighty US revels in the fact that they could vote online. But most of what they still do in this time, the collation, the argument, the conversation, everything is what? Offline. So you have to ask yourself, what are our activities offline for us to create that change that is needed? I go to another one. Voter's card. Sincerely speaking, the issue of getting this card, see, I want to ask us, sir, if you have a card to vote, let us not lie. Forget about the fact that there's a spiritual connection to every one of us here. If you have your card, just say hello to me, wave your hand. They may not be here with the card. I want you. You know, no card again. Well, let me say this again. I'm somebody who moves from Pidgin to Yoruba to Hausa. At times it's happened. I have realized, sir, that part of what we need to do, especially if you want to take up leadership positions, sir, is to even understand the ways of other people. If you don't, sir, some things will not bounce in your direction. Not in terms of corruption. Some people will not even listen to you. There's a way people feel when you speak in their language. There's a connection. It's psychological, sir. So in the course of my journalistic work, I try to pick language, the one I don't understand. Oh yeah, what do you mean? The one I don't speak well, they correct me. And it has helped me to have people say, come, let me give you this knowledge. Let me share this information with you. Because there's a way people feel you are part of their cause. You are part of the thing they want to achieve. The reality is, my brother, when he was speaking, mentioned how easy it is for us to do the processing. Let me tell you, it is easier to process your card these days than you move from here to CMS. Because if the hold-up gets you and you are moving out of here by 7, maybe you overslept, you can be sure you get out there by 10. And some of these processes, maybe late night when everybody has slept, you can go on the platform and do it when the activities is actually, am I making any sense here? What am I saying? We cannot be talking about change if you don't have this thing in your hands. And that is why, sir, it is very key that you need to do one thing that will help. Proper documentation of the teenagers and create platforms or opportunities for them to even understand this country that they find themselves. Excuse me, let's say this for ourselves. This phone will not teach them a lot. Take it from me. This phone that you're looking at, it will not teach them a lot. So for many of you who have provided this gadget for them, and this gadget has 1 month's data, you know, one of the things we have done is we've made our children very comfortable, which is not bad. Nobody prays to suffer. But let me tell you, in the school of growth and development, hard knocks cannot be escaped. In the school of growth, physical progression, development, advancement, hard knocks cannot be escaped. And that is why you find out that these days, 25, 30, they don't even know how to decide. They don't even know how to speak with a girl they love. So they marry 6 months, they're out of it. Communication was never part of it. They can hide in their homes for 6-10 months. Just with their phones, they are comfortable. This device, and do not ever forget, this is the secular society. Hello? This is secular. Except you choose specifics, it leads you into secularity. This device. I'm not talking spiritual, I'm talking factual. These gadgets is what the Igbo man called Uwalile. It takes you across the globe, no restrictions. Once your data is there. But how then do you choose that which will help enhance the specific or identify challenges so that we are talking about now? And you know the dangerous part? Anything about Nigeria these days, especially with the divisions we have, affects unity. So it is that which you have given to those you want to take over from you that will help counter the negatives they encounter here and reshape them. So I ask you again, how much of these do they have access to, and how much of access do they have to you? Because at times we console them by saying, oh, take this and all that. When was the last time you told maybe your 7-year-old, your 8-year-old, your 10-year-old some very needful stories, even about your ancestry? Some of us have come, well, I'm from Lagos, so if everybody packs out, we go still there here, because ancestral, this is where I'm from. But for people that have moved from different parts of the country to settle here, because one old woman is a witch that is chopping everybody, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. How much have you even taught your own children about your heritage? How much of your dialect do you even speak to your friends? Let's say some people are not married here, sir. English has colonized us to the point that we are not into realizing the who that we are. English is good. I can speak and write Yoruba as I'm standing here 100% as I do English. And it is deliberate. Because the truth is the world is going in a direction, if you understood it, where they don't want anybody to think in another way. And the language of a people keeps you in a corner where they make you think like them. And that is why even within Christian societies, you find out that people are becoming numbed to the reality of some kind of questionable sexual choices. Because they have introduced lots of things to us that we feel, it doesn't matter, let's go. Why am I saying this? We must understand that if we have to impart, knowledge is deliberate, our choices are deliberate, how much we know also becomes deliberate. Then the School of Hard Knocks have also talked about it. You can't take it away. So I say, if you do not have this, you need to get it. Now I want to go to the fourth thing, which is key. Cost of participation. I've talked about getting involved. I talked about that under knowledge for self, for development. I talked about interest. Interest has to be deliberate and compulsory. Your voter's card, if you've not gotten it, you have to repent now and make sure you process yours. You can meet our brother who would give you more guidance on that. He spoke extensively on that, and ensure you get it. So another thing is the cost of participation. Excuse me, Buhari was telling us when he came in 2015 that he had $1 million in his accounts. And before we knew it, we saw that plenty of cattle kept going to Daura, Esther code and everything. We know that the office he occupies has specs. You know, there are perks of the office one occupies. But even at that is the fact that we know that the details of everything is wobbly, but we let it go. But one thing that I want to bring out is how much does it cost first? Because oftentimes if we want to participate, we think, how much does it cost for Mr. A to participate as a councillor? Sir, as a councillor, sir, I do not think that your form is less than 100,000 naira, 150,000 naira. If you move up that ladder, don't forget, when you start talking about some parties, they tell you that for their women, it is free. If a woman wants to contest, it is free. If this, but what I'm saying is, when it gets to the real deal, or people wanting to go to the National Assembly, as a House of Reps, particularly the very brilliant documentation that you shared with me, sir, you'd find out that the cost at the same time makes you wonder that if you earn 150,000 and you don't even touch the money, you may not be able to buy the form in 10, 20 years. So when do you even realize your political ambition? That's another thing. So what I just believe we should begin with from today is that for every demography that we have, for instance, the National Youth Policy of 2019 talks about 18 to about 35. Then there's an Africa Charter on Youth that talks about 16 to 35 in terms of the demography. I think for us as a people, we have to look at what demography we have within this space. As an institution that we have to begin to look at, okay, what are the things we intend to do? Corporate social responsibility can win a lot of hearts. You may not be able to feed people, but I can decide that once a month we'll clean all these gutters. And you dance, you do it. You can decide that every grass that is on this street, you take it off. Let it be your corporate social responsibility. But we know the end. But there's a means to what? To that end. Then following from there, you begin to sensitize. Even in this space, we can use the numbers to galvanize the needed knowledge and support. And let me say this. anything that has to do with achieving successes with the things we are saying will be done if we let our children leave some of the comfort zone we are giving them, sir. Oga, I heard your profile, and I found that you have taken your time to acquire knowledge. Was it comfortable, sir? Especially going to Lagos Business School, as if you are going to the back of the Atlantic Ocean. Was that very easy? But the discomfort we have to raise our children, we believe that some of those privileges should not be denied our own. But Lord, understand this. Some of the things we denied ourselves to succeed, we are preventing our children to understand the realities that hard knocks are hard knocks. It's not as if you don't give them, you keep it at times. And you let them say, come on, move. So that they'll understand when you are not there, who lives forever. Even our Lord has gone since, let alone mere mortals as ourselves. So in summary, I would appreciate that we begin first, sir, forthwith, with this Jerusalem that we have. Understand the demography. It is not bad to understand or to gauge the knowledge quotient of people. How much do you know about your political parties? You can just have a questionnaire, 5, 6, 7 questions. It can be online. Just let people click. How much do you know? Maybe 50%, 40% of the church. Then you move from there. Let's have, even if it's once in 2 months, let people come to speak on specifics. Because the reality is consistency of this purpose will help people's knowledge quotient and will help them develop interests that will help. So at this point, I just want to say that I'm very grateful for the privilege that this force, this unit has given me. And do you know what? My sincere appreciation goes to you for even finding time. And I can assure you that even this same week, I'm going to talk about this place on my radio program. I'm going to say thank you to every one of you for finding time in today's rain, because work is tomorrow. And sir, I'll mention your name specifically for this particular place that you have availed us to make use of. And I want to thank Abiodun Olukunle, who really didn't let me rest all along. It was on my neck. Madam, I thank you very much. Sir, my sincere appreciation. I know that I spoke with some people while we had the meeting when I was on one of the streets there. But I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful. Sir? Okay, thank you very much. So I want to thank every beautiful person here. I'm grateful. You have a very good smile. Please keep it. Yes, you. Yes. Yeah, please keep it. Yes. And I like your interest. You know, one of the things we do when we talk to people, the faces actually is where you have the communication. And I'm very grateful that we even have more ladies. Abi, the numbers are equal. Whatever it is, I want to thank God for the privilege of today. I want to thank everybody for the time you have given me to speak. I hope I made a little sense, ma. Small sense, just small. Please let it be as it is. Thank you very much, and God bless Nigeria.
Wow, 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 wow. That was very, very, very insightful. I hope we are all blessed. Now it's time for question and answer. I don't know, with all have been said, you want to ask 1 or 2 questions. Okay. Please, all our guests, please, Ebenezer.
Thank you to everyone. Thank you to the panelists, to our able, I don't know the names now, please pardon me, the last speaker also. A lot has been said, and there are so many questions in my head, like Remy said earlier. Honestly, I don't know which one to say first. But let me just answer as they come. Okay, now we've heard so many things tonight, and you said something earlier about the issues, you know, you encountered. There's so many issues. I'm hoping that this is going to be, I believe so, there's going to be a recurrent meeting. And how can we move from where we are at to where we're supposed to be? Now, he has raised the issue of the people for whom this meeting is meant for. Most of them are not around because of Little Rain, right? How can we get people? She also mentioned something about the when they were trying to knock on doors in Parkview and all that. The elites, they are not interested. How can we get people interested, utilizing, leveraging technology? Because we can decide that, okay, the next meeting, let's have a Zoom meeting where everybody's more represented, you know. How can we do that? Then secondly, I would like a situation where we can get INEC officials involved in this kind of meeting. Why? They will be able to answer some of the questions or the issues you raised earlier. Because honestly, I like to throw some daggers of questions at them as you were talking. Yeah, that was what I was going to. Give us answers. We demand answers from you. You're a public officer, you know. So I would like something like that to happen. But please, how can we make this better? Move from where we are at, identifying all the things you have said, the issues, get people more interested, leveraging technology to reach more people. And I appreciate our last speaker, Mr. Journalist. I'm sorry, please pardon me. I'll lend your names and we'll get your cards. But I love something he said. In fact, he's given us a lot of pointers. Before you can go knocking on doors in Parkview in Banana, what have you done? What has been your social, what's it called? Your social capital, you know? What have you done? So, okay, so we can start to do little things that will then, you know, so please, I need for you to just help us, give us bounce the ideas around. Let's have, you know, how can we move from where we are at?
All right. Should I say something? Okay. Now, I think that for some of us here, has anybody read The Beautiful Ones Are Not Yet Born? Many persons are chichidodo here. You hate that thing, but you like the maggots. Some of us work with certain persons that find themselves in these public offices, sir. And since we've been working, we're comfortable collecting the contract, knowing full well that some of the things they're doing is shortchanging another person. Have you had the boldness to walk away? Even if you're afraid of walking away and losing the opportunities, have you for once tried to call the attention of that person and say, sir, this particular thing, sir, can we just change it? You mention it once, he refused. You mention it twice, he refused. You mention it 3 times, you take a walk. The building that collapsed, they were once in February of 2020. We saw what circulated. And the people had to cut off the business relationship because they felt they were not following standards. These were not a group of people that are claiming Christians or Muslims. They were just those who understood ethics of the profession. As little as our ethics can help us solve some of these problems, we know very well that some of these people that have the responsibility of leading and providing certain basic amenities are not doing it. But they come to our offices, they made provisions in hundreds of millions, and we just look the other way. It is tough, excuse me, it is a tall order. Ask yourself, for instance, why the likes of our Lord went to prison. Ask. I don't want to go into that history. Ask why our Lord went to Calabar prisons. I'm conversant with Calabar. I've been there a number of times. Why did he go to prison? What did he stand for? In all of his human perfections, as I speak here, it is only the Southwest that has what is called Development Agenda for Western Nigeria. I think it's available if you did a check. In fact, it's on record, documented historical record. I have some of the materials from time. He already had a cabinet with people functioning long before the region of the West even had a taste of power. So what I'm saying in essence is there are certain things you stand for despite the challenges. And I'm saying that it begins with each of us. If we want to do anything that impacts, from the support given to our leader here and every other person that surrounds him, from how he also marshals those ideas, because there has to be confluence. It is when there is confluence that some of these things happen. But basically, if you want these things to happen, you have to also get the basics. Voter card, belong somewhere. As a matter of fact, we have a lot of educated people here that if this church or this institution and others decide to form a party, even if you have 2 people here that are councillors here, just council up. People want to run to Abuja. Wait first, cool down. Before you go to Abuja, try to fix the potholes and the bottlenecks that is there by participating. And that's one of the initiatives we're raising. So let people stop going high five. Relax your mind and say, okay, how many councillorship seats are available in Etiosa? Maybe 10. We sit down, we plan. We want to take 4. Between now and 2023, we want to build people and create platforms. And listen, For you to even become a councillor or a local government chairman, it takes a lot of work, considering the peculiarity of where we find ourselves. And there are times they say, if your strength fail you in the day of adversity, then the strength will belly. So that means you need to find strength that is strong. So whilst the church teaches, be sound, be ethical, you have to be rugged enough. It is not unscriptural to stand and say, they voted for me and I cannot let you shortchange me. You still go to heaven. So stop thinking like a weakling. No, I'm Christian, I stand for it, they voted for me. Then it's again, content and an IC. You talked about money. Sir, the money will increase in 2023. Nobody will take 5,000 to be your polling agent, agent officer. I'm very sorry to say this. But my dear, if we can start from that little bit, I think it can help us. Thank you once again, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
I don't want to belabor anything he has said. I like your zeal. So just do I like things to start from the basics, and you start from yourself. Yeah. So I did tell you that ordinarily, why should I be involved in politics, really? If anybody that knew me from childhood would say I'm the most unlikely person to be involved in politics. And being involved is not because I was lacking anything per se. By the grace of God, this is November 2021. It's exactly 30 years I qualified as a chartered accountant. 30 years. So, but let's start with ourselves. He said something. Control your environment. You talked about online. In our context, online should be to celebrate successes you made offline, in the physical, so that we want people to know. So we've had this discussion, we've had this program, it's recorded. Then you broadcast it to several people and they see but if you wanted them to join you while you were having it, not too many. And in fact, the numbers we have here physically, I even say are good enough, in reality. You'll be shocked how one infects 5, 10, 50, 100, 500, and that's how it works. In fact, when you are changing your locality, it will be impactful and somebody will be seen from outside. You live in an environment, this church is an environment, be relevant in your environment. When they make a call for some form of community service or in your residence association, offer yourself. I'm involved in my residence association. My wife is here. I'm the financial secretary, right, for the past 6 years. For every month, this is November, before November 30, the financials of the estate is posted to every resident. And for the past 6 years, 1 month has not missed. So I now see that people don't even read their emails. They don't read the WhatsApp messages on the financial because, but it then means that they are confident that their resources are being used prudently and wisely. When you get involved in your locality, you are happy because first and foremost, where you live, you have some peace of mind. Then you can start extending the frontier. Can I go outside of my community and let's make an impact? So you ask the question, I think the answer just lies with you. Get involved in one way that of several things that you have heard, and you'll be surprised how impactful that what looks like just small getting involved. You'll be surprised at how impactful it is. Thank you.
Okay, I think they've said a lot, so I'll just say, what can you do now? If you haven't registered to vote, please register. Okay, so I think there's a point there where we have to register people online. So yes, it's just behind. Once you go out there, there's a table behind there. So someone will register you online. So that's taking the first step. The second thing now is that you can do a research on all the political parties. Look at what they believe in, look at their manifesto. Whichever one aligns with you, you can join the party. The other thing you can do is that, what are you passionate about? What are the challenges you've seen in your community? Whatever challenge you see, I think it's something in you that is pointing you to that. And, that gives you responsibility to play your part. So it can be education, it could be infrastructure, it could be whatever the issue is. Look for an NGO that is already doing something. You can join them and give your time and resources to it. Thank you.
Can I say something?
Yes, ma'am.
As unimportant as it may seem or as it may sound, speak a Nigerian language. It is very, very important. See, the percentage of educated people in Nigeria is very low. Very, very low. If you speak Yoruba, speak Yoruba, not Lagos Yoruba, because you will fail. Lagos Yoruba is not Yoruba. It's not. If you speak Igbo, speak it well, because when it comes to campaigning and talking to people, you can't go to Oyinbo and speak English or speak Lagos Yoruba. It's not possible. You can't go to Alaba and speak Lagos Igbo. You must be able to identify with the people, and majority of the people in Nigeria are still the grassroots. They are the ones who are going to vote. If you join a party or if you are a candidate and you don't have grassroots, you are not going anywhere. So very, very important, speak a Nigerian, at least one.
Wow. We still have a lot to talk about, but because of time, we can't go ahead. Me, I still have a lot of questions to ask these people. I'm telling you, because in my mind, I'm still like, all these things that we are saying is still English. Because the motor park boy, they understand politics than all of us that are here. And we need to leave our comfort zone. All this English, all this Madam Oga. No. If you are going to make impact, you have to get to the dam. Yeah, you have to go to the dam. I'm telling you, and that is what I've planned, to do, because they are the ones that will be there for you. They are the ones that are ready to die. Why do you think Tinubu is having upper hand? He has bought to their mind. He has a larger share in their mind, so
Sir,
they cannot bought.
Sorry to interject you. Let me give you people privileged information. I found myself, sir, in one of the close quarters where Tinubu was speaking with Ifuadoki at an event. And while they were telling him, let's also get to the elite, he said, àwọn ọmọ tó páàkì ẹ̀rọ máa dúró dìbò tó máa bá mi jà fún gbò. I'm sorry, I don't know if he was saying that. I just want to corroborate what my friend here said, that for many of us, she's made a very valid point. You can't survive the political terrain speaking just English. And let's understand this. This gadget is secular. The specifics of it, you have to teach somebody. Sir, if I need certain knowledge about how you participated and it is not on this phone. We will sit down and talk about how you went to some swamps, how you moved, how some people almost tore your shirt. You won't find it on Google. It's not here. So I'm saying that for many people that have made impact, sir, it gets to a point you throw everything up. There are times when I go to some of these places, I look at some boys that I know that they don't appear like they are seeing with the same eyes as myself. I listen carefully, I go into it, because at times you need the story from them as well. And there are certain things they will tell you that you will not get elsewhere. So language is very key, and that is where, when I talk about knowledge, it's not only general knowledge on politics. Teach your children a Nigerian language. Teach them. Be deliberate. Many people can't speak it. You pay money, they teach them English. You come and speak English. You get to a stage, you use eyes to communicate. Your child doesn't understand. You do your leg like this, the pikin don't understand. You carry on. And those things are embedded in our language. Those things are key. Ogasa, it's your mic.
Okay. So I would like to call my pastor. Like I said, I see there are so many things in my mind, but I can't do that now. So I would like to call my pastor. God bless you. He's the one that gave us the opportunity. God bless you, sir. He's passionate too.
Well, we thank God for the message. I want to first of all appreciate all our speakers. Mr. Adeniyi Kunu, thank you. Mr. Kayode Awo, Koya, God bless you. Thank you. Mrs. Ubai, God bless you. Mrs. Nike Olujembola, God bless you. Mr. Toby Adejoro Olua, God bless you. Thank you so much. Well, Bethel has a lot of work to do to cut some pieces of these things and so we can spread it. Because quite a lot of things were said, very interesting. This country is very important to all of us, and there's nothing we can do than to put our heads together and make